Damien, just 10 years old. But there was something about him that set him apart from the other children in the village. His presence was unsettling, and his gaze, oh his gaze, was something that no one could forget. But his eyes, they held a chilling secret. They were not just eyes, they were windows to a soul that seemed far older and darker than his years. When you looked into them, it felt like staring into an abyss, a void that could swallow you whole, a darkness that sent shivers down your spine. It was as if he could see right through you, peeling back the layers of your being to expose your deepest fears and secrets. His stare was not just unsettling, it was terrifying. He was an enigma wrapped in a riddle, topped with a mischievous smirk. That smirk, it was as if he knew something you didn't, something that could change your life forever. It was both alluring and frightening, drawing you in while pushing you away. The kids called him evil. They whispered behind his back, pointing fingers and making up stories about the dark powers he supposedly possessed. They avoided him at all costs, fearing that even a glance from him could bring misfortune. The adults? They just whispered. They were more cautious, more reserved in their judgment, but the fear was still there. They spoke in hushed tones, sharing tales of strange occurrences and unexplained events that seemed to follow Damien wherever he went. They said he could make things happen. Bad things. With just a look or a gesture, he could bring about calamities that defied explanation. It was as if he had a direct line to the forces of darkness, bending them to his will. A bird mysteriously falling from the sky, a house fire. These were not just coincidences, they were signs, omens of the dark power that Damien wielded. People began to see patterns, connections that linked him to every misfortune that befell the village, a string of bad luck that followed anyone Damien disliked. Superstition? Maybe. But the evidence was hard to ignore. Broken bones, lost possessions, sudden illnesses, these were the marks of his displeasure, the consequences of crossing him. But nobody dared to tempt fate. They kept their distance, avoiding his gaze and his path. For in the village the name Damien was synonymous with fear, a fear that was as palpable as the air they breathed. And so the boy with the serpent's gaze lived on the fringes, a dark legend in the making. It all started with Mrs. Fitzwilliam's cat, Midnight, a sleek black creature with emerald eyes. Midnight was Damien's first victim. One day Midnight was napping in the sun, the next, gone, vanished without a trace, except for Damien. He was seen near Mrs. Fitzwilliam's yard, a glint in his eye and a sly smile on his face. No proof, just that look, the one that made everyone uneasy, the one that screamed, "I know something you don't." Word spread like wildfire. Damien, the boy with the serpent's gaze, had struck again. The playground, once a symphony of laughter and screams, was now filled with hushed whispers. Children pointed at Damien from afar, their eyes wide with fear. He became an outcast, a pariah. The whispers followed him like a shadow, a constant reminder of their fear. But Damien? He seemed unfazed, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. Parents warned their children, "Stay away from Damien, don't talk to him, don't even look at him." He was a bad seed, they said, a danger to their precious children. Damien's own parents, once loving and supportive, were at their wits' end. They couldn't understand their son. What had happened to their sweet, playful boy? Had he been possessed by something sinister? Even the teachers weren't immune to Damien's unsettling aura. The staff room, usually a haven of caffeine and gossip, became a breeding ground for anxious speculation. Miss Johnson swore she saw Damien's reflection smiling when his back was turned. Mr. Thompson claimed Damien's laughter sounded like the crackling of flames. Their fear was palpable, a thick fog that hung heavy in the air. Damien, they believed, was a master manipulator, playing them all like pawns in his twisted game. Damien saw it all. The fear in their eyes, the whispers behind his back, the way they treated him like a monster, a creature to be feared and avoided. It hurt. He was just a child, yearning for acceptance, for friendship. But the more they pushed him away, the more isolated he became, the angrier he felt. Their fear fueled his resentment, turning his sadness into a cold, hard anger. Then came the final straw, the night of the broken window, Mr. Thompson's classroom, a rock thrown in the dead of night, and who did they blame? Damien, of course. The whispers became accusations, the fear turned into hatred. This time, they had proof, or so they thought. Damien was seen near the school that night. He was seen with a rock in his hand, case closed. The monster had finally shown his true face. But what they didn't see, what they didn't know, was the truth. The truth that lay hidden beneath layers of misunderstanding and fear. It was a truth that no one wanted to uncover. A truth that was easier to ignore than to face. In the quiet corners of the night, where shadows danced and whispers echoed, the real story began to unfold. The truth that unfolded under the cloak of darkness. It was a night like any other, or so it seemed. The air was thick with anticipation, and the silence was almost deafening. But in that silence, something sinister was brewing. A figure moved stealthily, cloaked in shadows, blending seamlessly with the night. This figure had a purpose, a mission that would change everything. Damien didn't throw that rock. He was just a boy, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. His heart pounded in his chest as he witnessed the events unfold. Fear gripped him, but he knew he had to act. He couldn't just stand by and watch. He had to do something, anything to stop the impending disaster. He was trying to stop it. With every ounce of courage he could muster, he reached out, hoping to prevent the inevitable. His hands trembled, but his resolve was firm. He knew the consequences of inaction, and he couldn't bear the thought of being a silent witness to the chaos. He saw another figure, a shadowy outline lurking near the school. This figure was the real culprit, the one who had orchestrated the entire scene. Damien's eyes widened in realization. He wasn't alone in this. There was someone else, someone with a darker agenda. The figure moved with purpose, and Damien knew he had to act fast. He saw the rock being thrown. It all happened in slow motion, as if time itself had decided to stretch out the moment. The rock sailed through the air, a silent harbinger of destruction. Damien's heart sank as he watched, knowing that he was too late to stop it. He tried to stop it, he really did. With every fiber of his being he lunged forward, hoping to intercept the rock. But his efforts were in vain. The rock continued its trajectory, unstoppable and unyielding. Damien's outstretched hand grasped at empty air, a futile attempt to change the course of fate. But it was too late. The damage was done. The rock shattered the window, sending shards of glass flying in all directions. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the night, a stark reminder of the irreversible damage. Damien stood there, frozen in place, as the reality of the situation sank in. And Damien, the boy they already believed to be a monster, was branded the culprit. The whispers started almost immediately, spreading like wildfire. Fingers were pointed and accusations were made. No one wanted to hear his side of the story. To them, he was guilty, and that was all that mattered. The truth, hidden behind a mask of fear and prejudice, remained buried, waiting for the day it would finally be revealed. The next day, Damien didn't deny the accusations. He didn't defend himself. He stood there, in the principal's office, his head bowed, absorbing the weight of their words. The room was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of papers and the ticking of the clock on the wall. His parents stood beside him, their faces etched with disappointment and confusion. They had always believed in him, but now, even they were struggling to understand what had happened. He just looked at them, his serpent's gaze filled with a mixture of sadness and anger, and said, "You wouldn't believe me anyway." His voice was steady, but there was a tremor of pain beneath the surface. And he was right. They wouldn't. The principal, the teachers, even his friends, they all looked at him with a mixture of suspicion and pity. It was as if they had already made up their minds about him, and nothing he could say would change that. But deep down, a seed of doubt was planted. As they watched him walk out of the office, shoulders slumped and eyes downcast, they couldn't help but wonder if they had missed something. Was there a part of the story they didn't know? A truth that remained hidden beneath the surface? The truth, as it often does, remained hidden. It lingered in the shadows, elusive and intangible. Damien carried it with him, a heavy burden that weighed on his heart. He knew that revealing it would change everything, but he also knew that the world wasn't ready to hear it. So he kept it to himself, guarding it like a precious secret. But the events of that night changed something. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a glimpse of a reality they had never considered. The whispers started almost immediately, spreading like wildfire through the school. People talked in hushed tones, their voices filled with a mixture of curiosity and fear. What had really happened that night? And what did it mean for Damien? The whispers didn't disappear entirely, but they were laced with a hint of uncertainty. Had they misjudged Damien? The questions lingered in the air, unanswered and unsettling. Even those who had been quick to condemn him found themselves questioning their own judgments. Was it possible that they had been wrong? That there was more to the story than they had initially believed? Was there more to the story? The doubt gnawed at them, a persistent whisper in the back of their minds. They began to see Damien in a different light, not as a villain, but as a complex individual with his own struggles and secrets. The boy with the serpent's gaze had become a mystery, one that they were determined to unravel. The boy with the serpent's gaze had become a mirror, reflecting back their own fears and prejudices. In his eyes they saw their own insecurities and doubts. It was a sobering realization, one that forced them to confront the darker parts of themselves. They had been so quick to judge, so eager to find a scapegoat, that they had failed to see the truth that was right in front of them. And for the first time, they didn't like what they saw. The reflection was harsh and unyielding, showing them the parts of themselves they had tried to ignore. It was a moment of reckoning, a chance to change and grow. And as they looked at Damien, they realized that he had given them a gift. The opportunity to see themselves clearly, and to become better for it.